I'm relieved we are finally having this conversation, because when I trained in the early 2000s, this was not a conversation that organizations were willing to have. What is it we can bring to the table as leaders to help our people really cope with the insane pressure that many of them are under? I come from a psychological sort of lens, and I consider burnout to be this concept of resource depletion. Burnout is cumulative stress that has worn us down. It has chewed through our coping resources to the point that it feels like you're scraping off the bottom of the barrel. And I know it's a cliche, but it is as true as anything else. That idea that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And burnout is really that point which the resources are so depleted, there's nothing left in the cup. And it shows up in many different ways. Taylor, I see your hand up. Would you like to jump on the stage with me?
And so I think some of those points can be really helpful and meaningful to kind of tack onto that conversation around, hey, we have responsibility for some of the pressure here, and let's train on how we can address this and help our people cope with the pieces of pressure they're experiencing at work. So just an add, and thank you so much, Kate, for all of that. That was so helpful.
But so stress, if burnout is the accumulation of chronic stress, then obviously if we're going to have healthy conversations around what can we do about it, then we need to come back a level and say, well, what are we going to do about the stress we're experiencing? Because ultimately that is the only way we can start to minimize the impact of long-term burnout. And so really that has to be the question. Do our people feel supported? And how can we create an environment that encourages that? So a question for you to consider is, how can we actively reduce the pressure load? That's the simple question. I hope just highlights the fact that your self-care practices need to be intentional and are not going to happen by chance. Like, what can I do to look after myself? And when we're talking about supporting team members, considering these kind of ideas with them as well. And if we can use these three sort of mechanisms to interact with the process, then we can tip the balance, and there's a good chance we can actually deal with high levels of pressure, but still come out the other side thriving.